What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 63 of Around the Crease. This week, Michael Ward and I are talking about parents behaving badly, and we're starting now. All right, Michael, welcome back. We missed last week, so it's time for us to catch up a little bit and see what's going on. So how you been?
I've been good. I don't even realize that we missed last week. So that's how screwed up I am right now.
Yeah, it's been definitely a busy week for the both of us. I've kind of lost track of how many words that I write per week with all the notebooks and stuff like that, not to count all the editing and stuff like that I do. Like usually by the time Friday gets here, it's just kind of, okay, now I can breathe for few hours and then it cranks right back up.
Yeah, I the writing stuff. I'm getting better. I pat myself on the back now that I can do it on a Google Doc and send it to you.
Yeah, it
makes as opposed to taking a picture of it and sending it. And
one less step whenever you
right.
Figure it out.
Well, yeah, yeah, and I think I've got it where I can have my notebook the way you want it, and then I might do too much editorializing in it, but that pops up. And then my breakdown of the game, because that's the part I really like. I really like talking about the games that I go see and try to break those down as much as I can, because that's the fun part for me.
Yeah. Yeah, and obviously we'll be doing, well, actually, I guess so everybody knows we're going to talk about a topic that we've been dancing around for a few weeks, because obviously you've been to some games, I've been to some games, and obviously I have been covering high school sports for longer than I'm going to say right now, because I don't want to admit it, but for a long time. And after having Matt Noonan on last week's podcast, so if anybody didn't listen to that, I'll have that linked in the show notes as well. But we kind of want to talk a little bit about parental behavior, I guess. And this isn't a new topic. I think we literally danced around this on a couple other episodes earlier in the year. I think when we talked with Lee from Florida Lacrosse News, I think we tiptoed around the subject and got away with being like, hey, we're going to talk about this later. It is now later. So, but I know we're recording this on Easter, so everybody who's seen this will have already read your notebook by this point, and if you haven't, I will have that linked below as well. So why don't you kick us off and talk about what kind of spurred that section of your notebook this week?
Well, let's just say it wasn't this week necessarily. It's been a culmination of what I've been seeing over the last month and a half. Mm-hmm. Now, if you'll recall, and for people who don't know this, they can go back and look this up. I wrote an article
in the fall.
November?
Somewhere in the fall. Yeah, and I'll link that below as well.
Basically about parents. And I've been posting it on Twitter, and I just keep saying now, I'm going to post this every time. So if you're following me on Twitter, you'll keep seeing this post come up, because every time I go to a game, some parent will say something, and I tweet, I'll be posting a new article. I'll be posting an article. Yeah. So what's funny is now, I don't want to sound like some stuck-up dude in the world, but I go to these games, and I'm traveling everywhere. Yeah. And I wear my Lax Records hat with the logo on it, and I have my pullover with the logo on. So I'm very visible. And people come up to me all the time. I love your stuff. I read your stuff. Thank you for doing what you're doing. Like, you get noticed, which is very nice, and it's sort of gratifying, the fact that someone's listening and they appreciate it. The appreciation that I get is great. Like, please keep doing it. You're shining a spotlight on the Midwest. That's what I want. So over this time, most of the time I like sitting with the crowd. Yeah. I like to blend in. I like to, I usually take my hat off. I usually sit in a corner away from people so I could tweet, so I could write stuff down, because, again, analog guy in a digital world. Right. I write people's names down. I write numbers down. Tweeting is a pain for me to watch. But the parents have still gone. You're still seeing parents who are losing their minds. Yeah. I mean, and it's over the most trivial things, like a perceived bad call, and they're losing their mind. And I'm going, what's wrong with you? And they're swearing. Yeah. There's been how much money are you getting paid? Like, I literally want to tap the guy and say, do you really think these refs are getting paid to give it to the other team? Like, I for the life of me, I can't understand what goes through someone's mind. I mean, how can you be that? I know, again, I am a parent. I have a son who plays lacrosse. There are bad calls. There are good calls. Yeah. I don't say a word. My son is the smallest kid on the team. He gets pummeled. The other parents start yelling, and I look at him like, Do you hear me yelling?
Yeah.
He's small. He goes in, tries to play tough, gets pounded. That's the game.
Yeah.
I've never yelled about a referee ever. I've yelled at my kids about playing, but I've never yelled at a ref. I've seen this going on, and two things always stick in my head. These people don't know the rules. It's usually the loudest person in the world who's screaming, and he doesn't know the rules. Every time a kid lifts his arm when someone's got a stick on his arm is not warding. It's not warding. I hear warding yelled at. Now, I have to preface this. This doesn't happen when I'm out east as much. It happens, the warding part.
Yeah.
The warding.
Okay.
Okay. It happens
because I have stories about that.
Oh no, yeah. Believe me, I've seen that as well. I've seen the normal stuff as well. But I hear warding parents yelling warding 10 times a game. Like any time here, when a tackman comes around and a deep hole's got his arm on a stick, he's allowed to move the stick. He's not gaining himself an advantage.
Yeah.
He is just or it's under his arm. Anytime they see an arm go up, they're like, warding. It's sort of like when a pitcher takes his foot off the mound and people are screaming balk.
Balk. Yeah.
It's not a balk.
Yeah.
It might seem like it, but it isn't. So that's one. And then the other one is when on a shot and the ball goes out of bounds, it's the body closest to the ball, not the end line.
Right.
Like the ball might go out to the side and a kid on the other side will run to the end line and be standing there and a parent screaming, he was at the end line. He was at the end line. And I'm going, yeah, but that kid was closer to the ball and it's closest to the ball and it's the body. It's not the stick.
Right.
Like I want to walk around with the rule book saying,
see, if you think of that, like the defenseman, you'd always have the defenseman out there because they have the longest stick on that end of the field. Like the short sticks would come out with the short stick.
I understand people do use the stick and stick it out because, it might sway a ref. And again, I don't have a problem with trying to sway a ref. I don't have a problem with coaches.
Hand is part of the body, right?
Right.
So,
And I don't have a problem with a coach when there's a bad call or a questionable call getting on the ref. That's his job. That's what these guys are getting paid for too. These are coaches. Some of them know that you sort of work the referee.
Yes.
It sort of might backfire. If you get on a referee too much, he might glare you down and just not throw a flag.
Yeah.
So there's a fine line for coaches to take. But the parents screaming at him, I've never in my life heard from a referee who said, I'm totally going to change my call because that guy in the stands was screaming at me, calling me an asshole. That's totally going to work. This guy calling me every name in the book, screaming at me. And the part that I love the most, or actually hate, but I'm saying love, is that they go on for 5 minutes about the same thing. The play's been over. There's been 2 goals and the quarter changed. And the guy's still yelling about the perceived slight 5 minutes ago in the game that had no bearing in the game.
Yeah.
Didn't cost anything. Although there was a goal the other night and someone's like, that goal's on you, ref. That goal's on you. Now, I will tell you this. It was a ride. I'll tell you the game. It was HSC versus Carmel. It was a great ride by a HSC kid. Awesome. I mean, what a top-notch textbook ride. Awesome. Got the Carmel kid, got him out of bounds. During that, right before he was pushed out of bounds, Carmel called timeout. Excellent timeout. I didn't hear it. No one in the stands heard it.
Yeah.
Everyone goes to the sideline. They come back. Carmel's got the ball. A dad, whoever probably will hear, was losing his mind, screaming about it. Now, at this point, I knew it was a timeout. It was called. The referee went over and talked to both coaches. Carmel's ball. The coach for HSC standing there, no big deal, no nothing. This guy's going crazy. And I'm like, if the coach isn't going crazy, you might want to know that. I mean, there's your clue.
Right.
Look at the coach. If the coach is going crazy, because if anyone's going to go crazy, it's a coach. I mean, these are, high-strung guys, type A dudes. If they're not going crazy on the sideline about a perceived slight that a parent in the stands sees, maybe you should zip it. Okay, that's usually just look at the coach. If he's not complaining, odds are you have nothing to complain about. My other thing that I said to a parent a couple weeks ago that I just got, because every single time a stick touched a kid, he was screaming, penalty, 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 what's wrong with you? But then when it happened the other side, there was never a word.
Yeah.
So finally I went up to him after the game and I said, you seem to have been very upset with the referees in this game. He's like, I thought they were garbage. They did this. They didn't call this. They didn't call this. I said, were you upset with the refs or were you upset that the refs didn't call it your way? I said, because if you were really upset with the refs, I could understand, but then you should have said it when your guys were hammering their kids and they didn't call anything. But I didn't hear you complaining on that side. You only complained when it affected you. So was it the refs or was it the fact that you didn't get it? And he stood there dumbfounded. Like he literally didn't have an idea of what to say. And I just walked away. Like, it takes a lot for me to bite my tongue.
Yeah.
It takes a lot for me to, I couldn't help it because it was every time down. He was calling for it. So that's the only thing. That's the only thing that bugs me about this is the and it's not all the parents. It's usually one or two, maybe three. And usually what happens is if one guy does it on one team and then starts yelling about the other team, you'll always get another guy on the other team going back.
Right.
But it's almost like a proxy yell. One's yelling at the ref for this side and the other, but they're actually yelling at each other, but they're doing it. They're doing it with the case, like they're aiming it at the referee.
Yeah.
And then when you get the moms going in at it, I say this in all honesty. If someone wanted to make a documentary and just go with a hidden camera to sporting events, I'm not saying this is lacrosse. I will tell you this. Lacrosse is one of the more genteel sports around. Yeah. I mean, it's everywhere, but it's not as bad in lacrosse as it is everywhere. If someone just came with a camera and just videotaped it, just sat there with a camera and panned the crowd, just never even looked at the game, and then showed it to the people after the game.
Oh,
to say, hey, would you sign this release because making a documentary? I can't imagine one person would say, oh yeah, I want to be on camera for that because I look really good in this.
Yeah.
I think you could shine a light on these people because these are, again, people have recognized me. I've had them come up to me and apologize. I've had parents come up to me before the game and warn me, I'm apologize what you're about to see.
Little Johnny's dad is going to be in the stands tonight.
Right. A couple of these parents do this. He's a really good guy. He just loses it when his kid's playing. His kid's the nicest kid in the world. The dad's the nicest, but he just loses it. Like, they are telling me the name of the kid, the name of the parent, where I sometimes go, is public shaming next? Do I just start writing names? I would never do that.
I would edit those out.
It would never get by you. I know that. It's my Twitter account when I'm sitting in the game.
Yeah, that I can't control.
I mean, there are parents.
But that's on you, too. I'm like, you're going to have to see those parents on the sidelines.
I'm not worried about that. But there has been people, which I'm amazed by. Because then also, I've talked to college coaches who have said,
yes,
I have dropped commitments.
Yep.
I have dropped recruits based on their parents' behavior. And all I keep thinking is, if I walk into a game and I'm just some no-name guy writing Twitter things for Midwest high school lacrosse, and people are telling me about the people I have to be worried about, you don't think a coach who gets paid and does his due diligence doesn't know every parent and every kid he's looking at?
And I've talked to, I don't know if it's the same coach, and I'll leave him out of it. Because I can't remember, it's one of many over the years, and I've heard it from many of them, but I've asked, like, what's a difference maker? Like, you got two kids, you got player A and player B, and they're pretty close in talent level. Like, what stuff are you looking at? And obviously, grades is one of the big ones. Obviously, they look at grades like, which one do you think will be easier to get into school? Because, if you take the easier one if you can. But then they're also like, we look at their parents. Like, when we're at games, because obviously they're going, they're not really going to the high school games, but it's even more interesting when you get to some of the recruiting events. So, like, and I know you've been to those, but, like, this stuff gets as bad, if not worse, sometimes at some of the recruiting events. And I've talked to coaches, like, if we see the kids, if the parents are screaming and yelling and they're really getting on the ref or they're getting on the coaches, or we see them riding their kid on the sideline, like, they're not saying that, like, it's an absolute deal breaker, but if the kids are close, You're gonna look
Right.
like because they realize like we got to look at how the parents are now, and he's like part of their job is like they manage the kids when they're in college, but they're like, all right, it's I think the new term is snowplow parents. I forget, like I saw it a few weeks ago. He's got helicopter dads, lawnmower moms, and I think it was snowplow parents.
I
Or
don't
something.
even know what a
there's
snowplow
there's
is.
all kinds of terms. It was a new one I heard, and I was like, oh, that's a new one on me.
I'm a parent. I don't know these terms.
Yeah. Oh, you've never heard helicopter parent? And,
Oh, I've heard helicopter parent.
Lawnmower parent.
I just recently heard the lawnmower, but
Yeah.
the snowplow is completely new.
Actually, it was the Jacksonville men's coach years ago told me, he was like, oh, he's like the helicopter parents are bad. He's like, but the lawnmower dads are worse.
I'm not sure what the lawnmower entails though. Like
you basically will run over anything in your kid's way.
okay,
Like,
okay.
But which I think is the same
The
snowplow,
snowplow,
lawnmower.
Snowplow works better for me in that.
Maybe
in
it
that
works
aspect.
better in the Midwest.
Right.
But,
Especially now still.
yeah.
Although today it's beautiful.
Yeah, but but it was coach. He was like, because when we get the kid to campus, like we got enough stuff on our plate. We don't want to have to manage the parents in addition to everything else we got to manage. So if it's close, like they will shy away from a kid. I mean, obviously, if you get a kid that's a phenomenal talent, like Brennan O'Neill, if his parents were
Right.
absolutely
They could be
horrendous,
axe murderers.
yeah,
Right.
they'll figure it out. Like
Right.
I've had coaches in football tell me that we literally walked into a recruiting coach's office and he had all the kids and their GPAs on the whiteboard. We're like, how are you going to get this kid in here? And we knew the kid, like he was like, for him, we'll get him in. Like talent goes a long way.
Talent goes the farthest if you're
yeah.
really talented.
But like we're talking like kids are close, so it's one of those like, and I don't think the parents realize that because and it's always one of those things like I find funny because in lacrosse it happens, and I think like it happens in every sport. Like I've been on AAU sidelines for basketball, I've been on a lot of football sidelines, and it happens everywhere. But I think with lacrosse, like out here, I've noticed the crowds are a lot smaller. It is much easier to identify the person, and there's not as many. In football, there's like 6 people or 7 people, and it's a whole stadium, and you can't see or like the people in the stands know.
There's also a buzz the whole time.
Yes,
Right.
so it's really harder to identify. But when you get to a lacrosse game, like for example, like I went to a game a few weeks ago, and it wasn't necessarily the parents, but it was the kids in the stand, and they were egging the players on.
Oh,
and
I've heard that too.
And it was just like, trying to get on them and get on them and get on them. And, to be honest, the player didn't do himself any favors by reacting. But, and I'm not going to say it's a Midwest thing because I was at the MIA championship game a few years ago and there was kids on the stand and they were getting on Liam Powderly. And it's like anybody who knows recruiting, I think, excuse me if I'm wrong, but I think he's like 5'6", 5'7". He's not a tall kid. He's extraordinarily talented, very quick, and can score. He's going to do very well in college. But the opponents were riding him about his height. You wouldn't have known. If you just looked at him, you'd have never known. Like, the stuff that these kids were saying was horrendous. Like, they were trying to get a rise out of him.
Right.
The championship game, trying to get in his head. Luckily I haven't heard parents do that. But, I was at Haverford School years and years ago, and I was standing on the sidelines, and whereas I know, like, when we've been to games, that same game, like, I always stand on the side with the coaches and the players. One of that is because usually I'm taking photos, and it's usually either to get pictures of coaches and stuff like that when I'm close. But I learned many, many years ago that standing on the sideline where parents have access to me really prevents me from being able to do my job because most people want to come up and talk, and they'll be like, "Oh, you see number 42? That's my kid. Watch." Like, they just constantly want to tell you how good their kid is, and I'm like, well, I know you're watching one. I'm trying to watch everybody and see what's going on because I'm doing something different. So, like, I learned years ago, like, I stand away so I can kind of be. Plus, I don't want to be influenced. Like, I like to see what I want to see. I don't want to be influenced. I talk to the coaches and I talk to the players and the people who follow the teams to get my information. Like, because they're biased too, but. Of course they're going to tell me, but I don't
mind their bias though.
I'm always sure to ask the coaches, like, who are the players on the other team that impressed you today? Because I want to make sure if that's matched up. Like, if I know the head coach is going to give me his players that either are the kids going to college or a kid that he's hoping to get into college. So he's like, oh, if I mention this kid's name here, he'll get written up and maybe he'll get noticed by college coaches. Whereas if I ask the opposing coaches, like, he's got no skin in the game, for the most part on the opposing team. So that's usually how I go about, finding out my information on each team, because then I like to see if any of those match up. And honestly, most of the time they do. Most coaches are pretty on the up and up with that stuff. But I remember being on the sideline at Haverford School years ago, and the parents, and I could not tell who they were yelling at, because I think they were just kind of generally screaming, because they were yelling at the ref at one point, and then they were yelling at their son, because I remember standing next to the kid, and his friend tapped him on the shoulder. He's like, I can see your dad showed up today. And the kid just shook his head, and he was like, I really wish he'd stop coming to games. Like, and it was that kind of moment. You're just like, wow. I was like, so this isn't. And like the kid never looked. Like they didn't look. They didn't look in the stands and see who it was. Like they just knew based on voice and temper. It was like, I was like, this kid is probably. I was like, and we're talking a high school kid. Like this kid's probably dealt with this for years and years. Like it's just gotten to the point, and his friends was probably knowing. Like luckily they didn't ride the friend too much, but it was just one of those like. And it was. I mean, we're talking about a big crowd too. And it's just like I look at him like. The funny part was when they started trying to make some comments to Coach Nostrand.
Oh, right. I mean,
former Marine.
Right.
He's forgotten more about lacrosse than anybody in those stands will ever know, and he never reacted. And I think it was just funny. Like it was just you could see he heard, but it was just one of those things. Like he looked over, like tapped his assistant coach and just kind of shook his head, and his coach just laughed. I'm like, what? Where are you going with that one? It's like,
right.
Because I was like,
sense.
Yeah. Because, yeah. So it's like, it's nothing new, and it's not like it's not a lacrosse only thing, but it's a bit of a problem. I mean, I think last summer there was that video that went on, and I think it was softball or something, like where the group of parents got into a physical altercation because one parent was jawing, and then another parent picked up and was jawing the other way, and then they stopped pretending that they were yelling at the refs and just started yelling at each other, and then it boils over. And, like, I think I've gotten to the point where I almost tune it out. Like, unless it gets really, really bad, I'm able to kind of tune it out and just kind of ignore for the most part. And, again, because I stand on the opposite side,
right,
it's harder to tell. But, I've been at the Under Armour games where, it's one of those. And, like, I've watched coaches talk about, like, oh, yeah, that's so-and-so's parent. And I'm like, that's horrible. That's horrible. It's like you're talking about like the coaches that are on the side, because you got to realize like a lot of those times those coaches, I don't know if you've ever been, but there's one field that has it's down the middle, and it's college coaches only because they segregated them from the parents so they can do their job.
Right.
But one of the fields faces where the parents, so the parents all sit against the tree line and stare. So the coaches can see exactly who the people are yelling. Like, it's not even hard. And I mean, there's enough people on the sideline, but it's also one of those, like, it's not, people are sitting in tree lines and they're usually in the shade. And I've watched coaches be like, yeah, that's, number 15's parents. And I'm like, so it's not even secret. It's not like you're hiding or one thing. And I'm like, you're at a recruiting event with college coaches, and while yes, your player is there to perform and do well, coaches are watching you. They're watching everything because they need to know that if they're bringing a kid on the campus, what kind of, like, they know what kind of player they're getting based on the play, but they want to know what kind of character, what kind of parent, like, they want to know everything. They're, like you said, they're doing their due diligence. So I've said it before. I'm like, if you think you're helping your kid by telling him this stuff, like, you're only making him play worse, because if nothing else, like, he's going to be like the Haverford School kid where he's embarrassed, and that's not going to make him play better. Like,
no, that's
you're
that's
not
sad.
helping anybody. You're not helping your kid by yelling at him on the sideline. And if you think you're, like you said, no referee's going to be like, oh, well, Johnny in the stands said I blew that call, so
right. You're right, sir.
Yeah.
I'm going to reverse it. It's never happening.
Yeah.
And the other part, and this is, I'm just getting on the referee part. Okay. The parent on the referee. Because as I said to somebody yesterday, I said, because someone was yelling just like nonstop, and I'm going every time. And then I said, they're not going to be real happy when there's no referees.
Yeah.
I said, they won't be happy when referees don't show up, Like, I think one of the comments was like, why'd you even show up? And then I said, well, maybe they won't one day, and your kid won't be able to play for anybody.
Yeah.
And won't that be a shame? Or flip side, you might get athletic directors who say, There's no, they're playing in front of no parents,
Yeah.
or they're playing in front of no crowds. Again, at a U11 tournament, I saw, or
Yeah.
maybe it was U9, I saw the referees clear the sidelines.
Yeah.
Everyone get out. This is an outdoor field. It was in Louisville. You have to walk away from. There's 10 fields. They cleared out the whole thing. They had to finish the game with no parents on the sideline.
Yeah.
With no fans on the sideline. And the refs walked up to all the parents, talked to the two coaches, and said, "Both of you will get forfeited if you don't get your parents out of here." And they cleared the sidelines. I know some of these parents. I know who it was. I know which teams it were. I know the parents. I still know the parents, and I always bring it up.
Yeah.
I always bring it up. Remember when you guys got kicked out of this thing? I remember it like it was yesterday. I know exactly the spot they were on the field. I know what team it was. And it just boggles the mind, like, why does that happen? Now, I will say this. A game the other day, when the parents are standing on the fence, that's even, these are parents. Now, I used to stand on the fence a lot too.
Yeah.
But I sit there and I don't say anything. I talk to myself. When I'm watching a game, I talk to myself the whole time because I'm saying, you should be cutting. There should be the move. Come around this way. Come around. I cheer for like both teams.
Yeah.
Like, just to digress on this. I was in the Loyola Academy New Cheer game this past week.
Yeah.
I was in the press box. It was me. So New Cheer has two press boxes. They have one on one side, one on the other. Mm-hmm. So I was on the inert. I was in the inert one, I guess. I was with all the parents. The people across the field were doing the other one. I had the Loyola Academy kid who was filming the game in the box with me.
Yeah.
And I asked him before the game started, are you recording sound on this? And he's like, I don't think so. I said, okay. So the whole game, I basically was doing a running commentary.
Yeah.
Like this, I'm like, oh, you should go. Now I knew all the kids from New Trier and Loyola. I knew almost every single one of them. I know almost all their parents. And I was giving running commentary the whole thing, just talking to myself. Like there's the kid wasn't listening to me. Well, I get a text message from Coach Snyder the next day. And he's Loyola's head coach. And he's like, I heard your whole entire commentary. He's like, I just got finished walking the thing. He's like, I just heard your whole commentary of the game. And I go, I literally talk to myself if I play it. I go, I don't think I said anything inappropriate. I go, and I don't think I said anything wrong. And he goes, it was fine. It's funny. He goes, I will be erasing it, when I show it to my team. But I sat there, I'm like, okay. Can you imagine if you were a parent and had a microphone on you the whole entire game? Yeah. Because there is. Because when I'm sitting there filming, so I film my son in his JV games. Because at this point, I don't even talk to him about his game anymore.
Yeah.
I just come home, I put it on, I walk away, and then I say to him afterwards, what did you think? And he says, I should have done this, I might have done this, I looked good here. That's all. That's the best teacher in the world. But if you listen to this playback, I could pick up people from 50 yards away talking. If I blackmailed people, I could. I mean, that's how sensitive these microphones are. So all the parents, someone has you on tape.
Oh yeah, everybody's got a mobile smartphone in their pocket nowadays. Like if you you're all basically being recorded.
Sure,
someone's recording something.
But would you have the video cameras that are for each team? Like their. And the guy is in front of it. I go, that coach comes in, watches that tape, hears you like they heard me, and hear it. So, I just hope that if you bang it home enough, that it can change. I mean, I almost want to say something in the game, but I know where it's going to go. I know exactly how it's going to go down. Yeah. I know exactly what's going to happen. And I'm like, that might be what needs to happen. But do I want to go get into a fight over a high school lacrosse game in, the Midwest? No. And funny enough, my son came to me with a game a few weeks back, and just normal sideline parent yelling, nothing out of the ordinary, but like the constant telling the kid what to do. Pick up the ground ball, throw it over there, pass it over there, go over there. And my son looks at me and goes, is this like this every game? I go, yeah, it is. He goes, do the parents know we can't hear him saying that? I go, no, they don't. And he goes, And do they not think we know how to play, that we need to be told to pick up the ball, pass the ball, move the ball? Like the whole time they sit there. It's like a play-by-play.
Yeah.
The ball. I love when everyone yells down, down, ball, ball, ball. I'm like, they're out there. They know that.
Yeah,
like,
they know.
Thanks. Like I always think I want a kid just turn around like, hey, thanks. I didn't know the ball was on the ground. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for pointing it out.
Yeah.
It's just so hopefully people watch this, and hopefully the people who do this, if they even realize they do it, if they even realize that their friends and their parents sitting with them talk about them and say, yeah, they are real morons watching the game. Love the guy. Great people. Great family. But when they're watching the game, they lose it. I'm hoping that maybe out of this, instead of being offended that we might be pointing them out, because we're not, and I could drop some names.
Yeah.
I got a list of them. But just say, as I said in the article, if you think I'm talking about you, I am.
Yeah. And I mean,
if it makes you change, that's all we want.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm never going to call someone out, not honestly, and not because I want to protect the parent, but because they have a kid that plays high school and there's no real need to embarrass the kid. Like,
right.
You know, but it's one of those things like, if you are listening or watching this and you're upset that, you know, like, oh, but, you know, the refs blow the call, they need to be told. Like, if you're having that reaction, if you're having that visceral reaction, you can feel it right in the pit of your stomach that you're getting a little bit angry that we're not on your side, then we are talking about you, because there is no reason to, there's really no reason to react like that. And like when I was talking to Matt on last week's podcast, like I readily admit, it's like, I have yelled at a referee in my living room watching a college basketball game. That's as close to as I get. But that's just, like, I would never do it in person. One, when I thought anybody could hear me. Plus, two, it's like you're yelling at the TV. It's a different thing. Like, and I don't even do that anymore. Like, that was unfortunate byproduct of living with my brother for many, many years and watching ACC basketball. But it's one of those, like, when I go to a game and I see this stuff and you see the reaction, like, a lot of times, like, there will be times, like, I get embarrassed for the parents. Because I'm just, like, I look at it, I'm like, you know, these referees, like, none of the referees are being paid. Well, they're being paid. They're not being paid to throw a game because, let's be honest, like, no high school program has enough money. If they have enough money to give to a referee to throw a game, they're probably pretty good to begin with. So they're probably getting a good enough caliber player that they don't need to be spending money on, you know, having high school refs throw games. And it's just one of those things, like, it's ridiculous. And I think my biggest concern is because I've seen more and more and more stories about not having enough referees, and getting to the point where, like, referees are aging out and there's not enough young people to replace them. So it's like, if these guys, they're retiring and they're calling, or they're just being like, you know what, I've had enough of this. And we get to a point, and maybe, like you said, that's what it takes to get to a point where, like, we have to cancel games. Like, these games
it's already
canceled.
happened. I've heard it's happened.
There was a year or two ago, I think there was some games in Florida that I heard got canceled because they didn't have enough referees. I've heard about it, and it's in spotty across the country. Like, it hasn't been widespread enough. Like, if it ever happened to an MIAA game, if it ever happened to a championship game, if it ever happened to something like that, then you would see. But then again, I look at them like, a lot of those programs, like, they would never allow that to happen.
Right.
Like, it's like some of them are like, they have better control over the parents. Like, I've heard of teams have parent meetings before the year, and they tell the parents, this is what we're going to tolerate, this is what we will not. Like, they have their team meeting, and then they have a meeting with the parents to tell them, like, there is a line, don't cross it, we don't care who you are. Because you keep in mind, some of these parents are high-powered CEOs, they run businesses, and they're not used to being told that. But when it comes to them, it's like, this is my field.
Your kid doesn't play.
Yeah.
If they're losing their mind that much because they're watching their kid, if you threaten them that their kid won't play, maybe that'll work.
Yeah. So
I saw a coach the other day, actually, in another game I was at. Parents were yelling on the sidelines, on the fence guys, screaming at the ref from, 10 feet away. The ref turned around and was like, that's enough out of you. The guy kept yelling. He turned around again and said, if you yell one more time, your team's going to get a penalty. Now, This was a very big game. Another parent from his team came over, put the arm around him, said, calm down. This is going to cost us. At a timeout, one of the assistant coaches ran completely across the field. Right in the guy's face. Not yelling, but just said, hey, we'll take care of the refs. Like you could see him like trying to loosen them up, saying,
Yeah.
we'll take care of the refs. That's our job. We'll handle it. Don't you handle it. And that's the point.
Yeah, it's the coach's job.
Those coaches weren't going crazy. This guy was going crazy, and he almost cost his team in a big game, but the coaches weren't upset about it. Some of these coaches are professional yelling at refs.
Yeah.
Coach Snyder from Loyola Academy could work a ref, like if he's watching this, don't take offense, but you know it's true. Like I've seen him walk at the other end. He's not even standing in front of his kid, just working the refs.
Yeah.
Working the refs.
And I mean, that's part of what they like.
That's what they do.
Over experience, that's what they do.
Right.
And they also realize, like, I mean, I've seen coaches yell at refs as well, like when they think they've blown calls, but they also seem to get it under. They're not. They don't go on for 5 minutes either.
Right. And then I see a ref will give them like, that's enough.
Yeah.
And they all back off.
The ref gives them that side eye.
Right.
They give them that
Like,
side eye and be like, all right, I've let you. And
that's it.
They know the line. Like some of them go over it. I've seen coaches go over it, but it's like I have yet to been to a high school lacrosse game where a coach has got kicked out. And I think like if you're listening, you think we're going on and on about this. I'm like, yeah, we've covered. We are beating the dead horse a little bit, and because one, I don't think we're not going to solve the issue. No one's going to listen to this and be, well, if we can get one, if we can change one, if we can change one, if we get one person to just pause and be like, maybe I won't this game.
That's the one. If I can save one life, yeah, that's the point of this. That's the whole point. Yeah.
So,
but yeah, of course, it's beating a dead horse.
Yeah. So we'll move on because ironically this week we are both heading to Long Island, but we are not going to the same games and we are going at completely different times. So I thought that was interesting to see talk about what we're both. And again, if you're listening to this now, you've probably already watched This Week in Lacrosse, which is out on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/laxrecords. It was out on Monday, so you probably know why I'm going to Long Island. But, Michael, why are you heading to Long Island this week?
Well, since I cover the Midwest, and basically only the Midwest, Loyola Academy, who we've just mentioned, Coach Snyder a couple times, who is the coach of Loyola Academy, is taking its second trip out east this year. Their first trip, they went to Baltimore, where they played Bullis, Georgetown Prep, and Calvert Hall, which have top 15 teams.
Yeah.
Not regional, national.
Yeah, Calvert Hall probably. I don't know if they're number one yet, but
right. Yeah.
Give it.
I mean, they've done it. And now Loyola goes back to Long Island to play Chaminade, St. Anthony's, and Garden City, who are, I think, number 3, number 5, and number 6 ranked in the nation. They're all top nationally. That's right. So I would say this is since the Midwest is what I care about the most about lacrosse. I'm like, I have to go out here to see our Midwest team. Like, now I say this to all the fans, all the people who like the Midwest lacrosse, who are fans from Ohio, Illinois, Indiana, Michigan, Ohio, Minnesota, Missouri, Kansas City, or Kansas, any of those. We should all be pulling for Loyola because the national spotlight is on them this week. And if they could break through and make noise, that makes the Midwest look good.
Yeah.
I don't care what your feeling about them is. I don't care if you don't like them as a team. But let's see if we could do something out there. I always hope whenever a Midwest team, no matter what the Midwest team does, no matter who they play, if it's outside the Midwest, I want them to win.
Yeah.
I might not like the team. I might not like some of the parents. I might not like the coach, but I will like them to win because that's my region. So that's why I'm going out there, because this is a team that is literally going against the best of the best. They have the means to do it. They have the opportunity to do it, which most schools don't get. So I don't penalize any schools for not doing this.
Right.
They have the talent to go out there and do it. This isn't a team that's saying, hey, we can go out there, so let's go out there and get pummeled. This is a team that can go out there and play. Now, they went out on this trip. They go out east on these trips every year. Last year, they beat Victor, who was the number 5 team in the country.
And who won the state championship.
Right. And then I think Victor's final national ranking was 10, and Loyola Academy wasn't ranked in the top 25, which still boggles the mind. So this is sort of to try to validate, I guess, even more on a national scale. I mean, I know as Midwesterners, we don't need the validation. We don't particularly care about the validation. But I like to sit there to say, hey, I cover Midwest lacrosse. And they're like, oh my God, you got some teams there. And I do love hearing that. I
Yeah.
do love hearing it. There are teams that are well known in the Midwest that everywhere I go, people always bring up the same teams. I want more teams to be brought up.
Yeah.
I want more. I want more. There's more teams coming up in Illinois that are going to be good. It's not going to always just be Loyola and New Trier. Right now it is. There are up and coming teams in Illinois that are going to be there for a while. There are up and coming teams in Michigan, Ohio, Indiana, Missouri. Minnesota gets no play, and they have a ton of talent.
Yeah.
They have a ton. So what we're trying to do is try to build the whole thing up, and that's why I'm going to cover this. I'm afraid. I don't know if Loyola's coming off. They were shorthanded in Maryland. They're coming off a lot of injuries. Hopefully, they got enough time to gel. Their style of play fits in with the East Coast style of play. They move all like an East Coast team. They play the same way as an East Coast team, so it will be a different matchup than what they're used to against the other teams in the Midwest, which tend to be a little more physical.
Yeah.
But this should be a great one. So I'm hoping that they do well. I'm hoping they represent well, because then again, they get them back to the Midwest. They play the New Triers. They play these teams that other teams play. Again, I think Brother Rice could do the same thing. I don't know if their school allows them. I think Brother Rice should be a top 25 ranked team right now. I don't think there's any question about it. You could talk to some coaches who have seen them, who have played in the MIAA or have coached the MIAA, and they said this team could play with any of them.
Yeah. I think Coach Garland mentioned that a few weeks ago.
Garland,
he said they would play well with those teams.
Another coach said he said Brother Rice is too good. They're too good. So that's another team. So those are the things. Not everyone can do it. Like I said, not everyone can do it. The public schools aren't. You're not going to get many public schools that are like, oh, well, let's go take a flight to out east. Now, as I've heard,
and plus public schools, I don't want to say suffer. That's the wrong word, but there's different restrictions on travel, like how far, how many games you can play. Like, sometimes you can only play a certain amount of teams from out of state, or you can only travel so many. Like, every state usually has some sort of restriction. It's not a free for all. So you have to pick and choose.
And this is Loyola. From what I heard, Loyola will only be able to do one big trip from now on.
Yeah.
So they're 2 airplane trips this year. I think they'll only be able to do one next year.
Yeah.
So now they might have to, and again, I have said this to them, come back and stay in the Midwest. Like the East Coast teams gave a Midwest team the opportunity to play them. What's the upside for an East Coast team to play Loyola? Really, if they lose, they get, we lost to a Midwest team. If they win, we beat a Midwest team.
Yeah.
So I've said it to some of the Midwest coaches. It's time to start paying that back with these other Midwest teams that don't get the chance. Go play them.
Yeah.
Go let them have a shot. These up and comers. Now, I've also said to the Midwest coaches, don't tell a coach that you want to play them just because you think you should. You better be ready to play them. Don't embarrass yourself or you'll set it back.
Yeah.
Don't get beat 25-0.
Right.
So if you're a team like MICDS, they can go anywhere and play with anybody.
Yeah.
Okay. But there's other teams. There's a few teams in Minnesota I'd like to see get a chance to play Brother Rice, to play Detroit Catholic, to play Loyola New Trier.
Yeah, it'd be nice. I think Minnesota, they always have the chance because they start so much later than everybody else. That a lot of teams are those out of conference, and those flexible games are probably there's very few choices that some of the Minnesota programs will have. So I mean, they're unfortunately limited by.
And then weather got killed. Weather killed them. I mean, yeah. And I mean, I've seen Minnesota travel teams.
Yeah.
In the summer.
They can play.
Big, physical, and athletic. I mean,
they're all hockey players.
They're all right. So it's literally like playing a Canadian team. They play like Canadians. I mean, it's and they just don't get the pub. Like I want to pull Minnesota in as much as I can and try to get them in because I think they would shock a lot of teams. I think the top 3 would come down to any of these states and give every one of them all they could handle, if not more. So that's the gist of the East Coast trip. Really looking forward to it. It's going to be a long drive. I get to see my in-laws who are all from Long Island, and I get to see 3 of the top top teams in the country.
Yeah.
I mean, these are all it's a win-win for me. So I'm
Yeah.
looking forward to it so much. Why are you going?
Yeah, we're kind of I guess tagging out because you leave
Right.
Thursday and then or I guess you head back to the Midwest on Thursday and I head out east on Thursday. I have a 9:30, 10 o'clock flight or something like that on Thursday night, and I am stopping in Baltimore to hang out with my brother who lives out there on Friday. But then I am heading out to the Geico Lacrosse Showcase, which technically is in its first year, but they've done the Geico High School Lacrosse Tournament the previous 2 years, and they held that at Catholic University. And I won't go into all the details because if you want to see that, I did it in This Week Lacrosse where I kind of broke down team by team and actually got to talk with Darien head coach Jeff Vermeer about preparing for a tournament like this. But it's one of those, like, this is the first year because they moved it. It used to be Memorial Day weekend, and the upside and downside of that is you basically had Hill Academy and Culver, and then a lot of private schools. And I think you had the Woodlands and Episcopal Academy from Texas the previous 2 years. But as when I was talking with Coach Premier Darian, a lot of the challenge with that, like for a lot of public schools to play that, one, some teams aren't even done with their regular season. Like New York, they're in their playoffs at that point in time, so they can't even play in it. So you would automatically eliminate Ward Melville or Garden City. Like they wouldn't even have that opportunity. So they moved it from Memorial Day to this weekend in April, which allowed a different range of schools to participate. So we're looking at Ward Melville, St. Anthony's, which is the host school because it's taking place at St. Anthony's. We have Haverford School out of Pennsylvania, Seton Hall Prep out of New Jersey, and Darien out of Connecticut, and Lincoln Sudbury out of Massachusetts. I mean, this is conceivably like every one of these teams could be hoisting a championship by the end of this season. Like I have that right? Yeah. Thinking through it in my head. Yeah. So it's not one of those, like, you could literally have a tournament where basically 6 champions played, and it's not a tournament style. And I keep saying tournament just because out of habit. It's not a tournament, it's a showcase. So, like, not everybody is going to play each other. The lineup is set for Saturday, the lineup is set for Sunday. But there's some pretty phenomenal matchups in this game. I think Darien out of Connecticut plays Seton Hall Prep on Saturday, and then they play St. Anthony's on Sunday, and then I forget who I think Haverford School plays Ward Melville, which I've never got to see Ward Melville play, so I'm pretty excited about that one. And obviously it's one of those, like, Coach John Nostrantz in his last season at Haverford School. So for me, it's nice to see because I've known him for a number of years as well too. So I mean, there is a great lineup of teams at this thing, and I'm excited. It was one of those, like, when they announced it, like, I had already marked my schedule for Memorial Day weekend, and then when they changed it, there was a lot of hemming and hawing, a few discussions with the wife on if I was like, should I really go to Long Island for a random Saturday in April, random weekend? And it was like, well, if I'm going east, I might as well try to visit family.
Right, you got to throw in the family.
Yeah, so it was kind of that. I think that was the clincher too. Is like, all right, if I can make one extra day, take the day off work and get there. So yeah, that's for me is pretty exciting to go there. I mean, the previous 2 years has been a top-notch event. Like, it is well run. I used to work at ESPN, so I had a little bit of behind-the-scenes knowledge of how these things get put together. So I know they always do a phenomenal job putting these things together. The access, like, it'll be interesting to see for me because the first year they made coaches available, like, kind of in a press room. Second year it was all on the field. So I'm kind of curious to see. Like, I've never been to St. Anthony, so I'll be curious to see what the facilities are like because that to me is a legendary school. With legendary players. So, like, I'm excited for many, many reasons to go out there and watch these games and kind of report back on what happened. I hope to have a video of kind of highlights from the tournament from the weekend too, so you'll be able to see that on the YouTube channel. So yeah, I'm stoked. Like, it's Sunday, Easter Sunday. I can't wait to leave. I'm already figuring. I was like, all right, make sure I have everything. I'm not packing quite yet, but I'm mentally make sure, like, all right, don't forget anything. It's not like I'm just heading up the road. I can't turn around and come back.
But it's not like you're in the middle of nowhere. If you need something, you can grab it. That's why I always look at it.
That's true as well.
But you and I are literally going to be watching, I think, St. Anthony, like, back to back. They play Loyola. St. Anthony plays Loyola Academy. The next game is Lincoln Sudbury. So you'll be out there for the one game. I'll be out there for the other game.
Yeah.
And there'll be lax record representation out there. They're going to be like, who are you guys?
Yes, there will be.
You know, I mean, they know you. They have no clue who I am. Who's this fat old guy walking up to me?
And
I'll be up there saying, "Hey, how you doing?"
I've seen Brennan O'Neill in person at the Under Armour stuff. This will be the first regular season game, which I was always one of those things like that'll be interesting to say the least because obviously it's been a year. Oh well, not quite a year, almost a year since I've seen him. And like the videos that I've seen, I'm like, I think he's gotten bigger. Because the kid's a beast. I mean, there's no shortage of talent on any of these teams. Like it's, no. And the nice thing is like if you're listening to this. Because I know you usually release the podcast late Saturday night. So if you're listening to this early Sunday, like these games are on ESPN. I think it's ESPNU and ESPN3. So it's a streaming service. But they are in some format of availability to watch. Like I don't know if they're going to do it on demand. I hope so. Because I know for me, since I'm usually watching it through the lens of a camera or writing notes, like you miss things. You don't watch the game in the same way whenever you're, videotaping or photographing the game. So I'm hoping for my case that I'm like, I can go to the sideline, I can do what I need to do there, I can talk to the coaches, but then I can also come home and just watch the game as a fan because the talent is too good to pass up. I mean, the matchups they got are pretty phenomenal. I mean,
right.
It's just it's pretty amazing the lineup. I mean, it was one of those like I was trying to see if there was another game on Sunday I could fit in, but yeah, I got to fly out. I have to work Monday, right. So I can't miss my day job too often for fun like this. But I figure I can do it for a couple times. So
absolutely.
So yeah, it should be fun. And I think next week we're gonna have to do a report back of if you ate any place fun. Because I'm gonna recommend one place because I ate years and years ago. I went to an Under Armour tryout at Massapequa, and there was this place I ate called Chow Baby, CIAO Baby. It's in Massapequa.
I know where it is.
They have.
It's not far from where I'm going.
It is. It was so good. I forget. I got some sort of Italian taco that was fantastic. Like I did a little sampler thing because it was on Man vs. Food.
People's head just blew up in Long Island when you said Italian taco.
Oh, it was so good. I don't remember. And then they had a meatball stuffed with mozzarella that was the size of a softball. Oh, it was so good. My mouth is watering just thinking about it. The place was so good. I told my buddy who's going with me, I was like, yeah, we're going there. It's like there's not even.
I'll have to try it. I usually like going to the bay, and going to get seafood, the fresh seafood and stuff like that, which I love. But I'm trying to think, will it be okay then? Yeah, it'll be warm enough.
Yeah, should be fine. Hopefully, yeah. I haven't even checked the weather.
I mean, I like to sit out on the pier. You get a beer, you get clams, you get oysters, you get whatever's fresh coming in.
Yeah,
I'll take that.
I'm gonna anger a whole raft of East Coasters right now. I've never been a seafood guy. I like it fine, but it's never what I crave. So
well, my kids are spoiled now. So like when like my daughter who's 12 says I only have linguine and clam sauce when I'm on Long Island. I'm like, okay, right. And my son like, I'll only have now. I agree with him here because now I've become the snob. He can only have a crab cake when he's in Maryland, and I'm like. I agree because now it's ruined it for me.
Yeah.
Because when I go to a restaurant in the Midwest and I get a crab cake and it looks like a hockey puck, I'm used to the crab cakes out in Baltimore that look like a softball.
Yeah.
And it's grilled and it's just barely put together. So there has been a few things that have been ruined for me.
Yeah.
Right. But I'm not afraid to go try food all the time. So
yeah.
I'll give it a shot. I'm going to be there for Monday night, Tuesday night, Wednesday night. Yeah, I'll be there for 3 nights, and the games are in the day. I got in-laws who are putting me up. I might as well say, hey, let's go get a little dinner on me.
If it's close enough to them, they've probably They've probably had it. Like I said, it was on Man vs. Food. That's how I found it. And I was one of those, it was one of those. I was like, because I'm always like, whenever I go somewhere, I'm like, what's someplace fun? Like someplace off the beaten path. I don't want to eat Ruby Tuesdays. I can do that any day. Like you know what you're getting, but I'm like, it's no fun. So always nice to get the local taste of what's going on. That place was like, as soon as I saw that was the first thing I thought about. I was like, I get to go see good lacrosse games. Like, I can go back and eat that place.
And then I've got to bring back my wife the bagels from her favorite bagel shop. But that's a tough one. I go 12 hours. I got to seal these things up because. Yeah. They're used to them right there, ready to go. So 12 hours, but I have no choice.
The car.
I have to bring them home. 12 hours. It's going to make that draw a little faster to make sure I can get them as fresh as possible.
Yeah.
When I come walking in the door around 1:30 in the morning, here are your bagels. Here are your home bagels.
Not to turn this into a food podcast, but my brother made the request. He was like, "Can you bring some Giordano's back? Because they do the frozen ones, the pre-frozen ones. They're like, can you bring some Giordano's back with you?"
Tell him
get
you
the
want
request.
get the Lou Malnati's ones.
I tried to convince him, but I think the Giordano's advertises on WGN,
Oh,
so
okay.
he's obviously he lives in Maryland. He's a Cubs fan, but he's watched the ads. And he likes the Giordano's. But I'm like, yeah,
That's
I'm gonna angry the mid. I'm just gonna anger everybody. Like I do prefer Illuminati's to Giordano's. Like,
that's not angering anyone. Anyone from Chicago knows Lou Malnati's is the best.
well, some people. Well, I can
No.
anger them because I really prefer New York style. So
See, I can't. Right. Well, I will also be inundated with that because that's what I get when they're calling it a pie. Here, have a slice of pie. Again, this is a whole other issue.
It's like it's like when I first moved out here, we're not going to turn this into a food podcast because I will alienate everybody. But yeah, when I moved out here, I was like, yeah, there was the whole New York versus Chicago style. I fall on the wrong side of the pattern, but luckily I'm not alone because there's New York style pizzas out here.
Right, but I'm from Chicago. My wife's from New York. So if you don't think there's certain food things that we fight about,
yeah.
And the kids have been split both ways. You got one kid who's like the New Yorker, the other kid who's like the Chicagoan. And then we live in Indiana. Go figure.
Yeah, go figure. All right, so
not getting any good food.
We'll do a follow up on that next week. So Michael, have a great trip. Be safe. Tell everybody where they can find you online as you travel the country.
You can find me on laxrecords.com. My email is mward@laxrecords.com. Or on Twitter, my Twitter handle is @MFWCHI. And again, anyone who's been following me knows that I will have a conversation with you. I'll talk to you about anything. I love it. So please reach out if you want to talk.
And you can find me at Lax Records on all the socials, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Obviously, I mentioned it earlier, but youtube.com/Lax Records. We're approaching 200 subscribers now. So we hit the 100 and we're moving on to 2. So yeah, definitely check us out there where obviously you can watch this podcast if you're listening to it. If you're watching it, please hit the subscribe button, hit the like. We'd love to hear some feedback. What do you think about parents behaving badly? What's your favorite places to eat when you go on trips? Like, I would love to hear that because if nothing else, it gives me a few more places to try next time I go on a trip. I'd love some of your recommendations.
I'm sure that'll be the bigger response. There might be a little response about, oh yeah, parents are bad, but here's a great place to eat. Because everyone can talk about a good place to eat.
Everybody's got that place.
That's happier, right?
Everybody's got that place that they've tried. They're like, this is the best place I've ever eaten. So we'd love to hear that. That's what I want to hear. Because we're not going to solve the other issue, but we can find some great places to eat.
Absolutely.
All right, everybody. Have a week.
See ya.
I hope everybody really enjoyed this episode. I know we had fun recording it. Please don't forget to hit that subscribe button. And if you enjoyed this video, hit a like. And please don't forget to give it a share. And you can check out another one of our podcast episodes in the playlist above. Everybody, I hope you have a wonderful week. And thank you for watching.